Well, good afternoon, good evening, Facebook family. I am so glad that you are joining me today. I am Bummi Anderson, as you probably already are aware of that. And I am so honored to have you on tonight. Tonight is a very special presentation because I am so honored to be having Dr. Daniel Black. And I must admit, I'm a little nervous because this is somebody that I look up to and I admire. And I always catch him when I can catch him on YouTube, when I can catch him on Karen Hunter's show. I'm always all ears on Dr. Daniel Black. And so I wanted to bring him here with us today, so you can get a chance. Some of you know him. You've heard his famous speech at Clark Atlanta's commencement of ceremonies in 2024. Here they come, y'all. Here they come. You've heard that famous call and celebration of particularly Clark Atlanta students, but HBCU students all over the country, and also students all over the world. So I wanted to bring him on to have him with us today. Dr. Daniel Black, I am so honored to have you. I think he's on mute. If he unmute himself, thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Black.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Wow, like I said, I'm honored. I am absolutely floored because I have been following you for a number of years now.
Oh my,
I try to catch you when you're on Hunter's show on
right,
Mondays. I
right.
try to catch you to hear your insight. And so I wanted to bring you on to my show because I think that you are one of our great thinkers. So
Oh
thank you so
wow.
much for being with us.
So glad
Uh,
to be here.
I am. Let's get started. I want to simply ask you first of all, when you hear the saying "all the things we carry," what comes to your mind as a black man, as a thinker? What comes to your mind when you hear that term "all the things we carry"?
It makes me think of our history, our legacy. It makes me think of what we've endured as a people throughout the diaspora. It makes me think of the unimaginable and the immeasurable loss African people experienced in the Middle Passage. It makes me think of the wonder and the magic of how we have survived and how we have created nations all around the world. It makes me think of the pyramids in ancient Nubia. It makes me think of Soweto in South Africa. It makes me think of Brazil, and it makes me think of Jamaica, and and it just makes me think of the complexities of who we are as African people, good, bad, heavy, light. It just makes me think of the wonders of what it means to be an African in this world.
It's funny that we're talking about that you mentioned about Africa, and I wanted to just touch on this because there's this I don't know what you would call it. There's this discourse or this discord in our country about
Yes.
uh, um, black people born in America and this separating of the African or the Black American from the African. What is your thoughts on that? I'm not sure if you're aware of it or if you've been hearing about that, but what is your thoughts? Because I can't. First of all, my name is African. My parents had the foresight to name my twin sister and I both African names, Nigerian to be exact. And I'm very I'm very honored to have that distinction. So I can't separate myself from that. But what are your thoughts on the the undercurrent that's going on between Black in America, Black American, and African?
I think it's a false distinction. It's like trying to distinguish the leaf from the tree, right?
Mm.
One produced the other, right? They are in fact one and the same. One comes from the other. They look different, right? But they are connected through lineage, through inheritance. Black people in America are African people. We have different experiences because we're in this land called America. That is true. But that was already true. In other words, African people were different on the continent of Africa before we were ever brought to the diaspora. Difference doesn't make us less African. You know, the Yoruba was not like the Akan. Exactly. The Akan weren't exactly like the Ashanti. The Ashanti weren't exactly like the Ewe, the Tiv, the Ga, the Wolof. You know, the list goes on and on. Some of they spoke different languages, etc. But they had commonalities. They had certain
Mm.
commonalities. Like all of them danced. All of them believed in the power of the spoken word. All of them believed in the beauty and the invisibility of spirit. You know, the list goes on and on. And African people in America are just that, African people in America. Because we've been here so long and because they changed our names and because they forced our mother tongue out of our mouths and forced
Mm.
their tongue into our mouths, it has made many, many of us believe that we're not African people. And some of us don't want to be. But the reason we don't want to be is because we've not been taught the beauty of what it means to be African, right? We keep associating um, Africa with lack of materialism in many ways, and we
Mm.
associate America with being a place of great prosperity because it's materiality that America often represents. So my thing again is it's a false distinction, and anyone who doesn't really know that Black people in America are African people is someone who doesn't know the history of what it has meant to be Black in this country.
Wow. And what do you feel about following up on that? What role do you think religion has played? Because religion, the Christianity that we that many black people have were given in this country. First of all, Christianity, blacks were Africans were Christian practicing Christianity long before other
Right,
people
right,
were.
right,
But
right.
what do you think the role of particularly white evangelicalism, uh, what do you think the role that has played in so much of our demonizing of African rituals and African culture as a whole? What do you think that the role of the Christianity
Sure.
that we were taught? How did
Yes.
that? How did those things connect?
Yes, I think that, and not only Christianity, I think Islam did a work on Africa too. In other words, I think foreign foreign religions um, transplanted to Africa did a very very negative work in terms of African consciousness and African culture. I think it planted seeds of self hatred. I think it planted all kinds of levels of abuse, manipulation, control, um, and I think ideologies like again Islam and Christianity also did a work in terms of pressing African people and pressing people around the world to believe that anything that is
Mm.
not Western, meaning Christian or Islamic, um, is actually is actually heathenist, is actually problematic, and too many Black people believe this that if it's anything that came from Africa in terms of spiritual system, that it is to be found suspicious.
Mm.
And I think that, quite frankly, is a form of self hatred.
Wow, wow. One of the things, of course, your speech, your commencement speech at CAU in 2024 went viral. I mean, everybody
Yes,
was
man.
talking about this
Yes,
speech.
ma'am.
Uh, and you honored the weight black students carry with them in that
Yes,
speech. What
yes.
burdens do you think we're still carrying from generations past?
Oh, wow. I think many. I think we're carrying the burden of being misnamed now.
Mm.
I think we're carrying for the most part, other people's names that don't belong to us, and I think there are all kinds of effects of that. Um, the second thing that I believe that we're carrying is somebody else's aesthetic tradition. In other words,
Mm.
our sense of beauty. I think Black people sometimes find it hard to find ourselves beautiful because we're using somebody else's aesthetic standards for what is beauty, how is beauty measured, who is beautiful, who qualifies as gorgeous. All of these things I think are made problematic uh, by us having been brought here to this land. And then the third thing that I think that we carry is the emotional trauma of having lost one
Mm.
another numbers. When I think of the Middle Passage, when I think of slavery, I mean, it's just millions and millions and millions of people, right? And I think we've never really worked through the trauma of loss. I think
Wow.
we've written it down. I think we've spoken about it. I don't know that we've ever ritualized it. I don't know that we've ever ritualized our trauma around loss. And I think that's something that Black people need to do desperately.
What are some things we can do to do that, to
Um,
ritualize
one,
our trauma?
I think we can do many, many, many more libations
Hmm.
in terms of calling the name of ancestors, and the ones whose names we don't know. I think we can name them ourselves, right? I think that's one thing. A second thing we can do um, around this whole notion of ritual of loss is that we can gather as people, as African people, gather as people and join hands physically, touch in some kind of way, and remember, right? Remembering is an incredible form of healing.
Mm.
Right, and we should recall those people who died for us, those people who marched for us, those people who were lynched, etc. Those people who were thrown overboard into the Atlantic Ocean. But see, we've got to do it together,
Mm.
because us being together means something in terms of the power of our memory, right? Um, And then the last thing I think that we can do is to teach our babies, to teach our children this history. See, whether schools are going to teach it or not is irrelevant to me. For me, I don't think it matters if schools are going to teach it. On Saturdays, on Sundays, we need to gather Black children and teach it ourselves,
Wow.
right? Uh, We don't need anybody else's sanction. We don't need anyone else's permission. We don't need anybody else's money. It's just something we can and should do for ourselves.
Bringing back the freedom schools, basically.
Yeah, the freedom schools, absolutely.
Wow, wow. I want to touch a little bit on grief. I, of course, having read Isaac's song, but also having read "Don't Cry for Me," a very deeply emotional book of letters from a father to a son.
Yes.
What do you think Black men carry emotionally that they're rarely allowed to name?
Rape. See, we can talk about women being raped. We
Mm.
almost never talk about men being raped, ever, under any circumstances. I think that is something that we need far more conversation about. A second thing that I think we need to talk about um, is what it meant for a Black man to be used as a breeder. We've heard
Mm.
this on American plantations that some Black men were used to impregnate women, right? I don't know that we've ever talked about emotionally and psychologically what that did to that brother. I don't know that we've ever talked about that. Like, what does it mean? What does it mean for a brother's body to be used literally like a very beast, simply, literally like a dog to just breed a person? We've talked about the effects of of um, of being bred on women's bodies
Yes.
and how women feel about being raped. We've talked about that. We have not talked about what it means for a man to have been used to do it. And so those two burdens, I think, it would be incredibly important for us to begin to have dialogue around.
Wow. Wow. And when we talk about Black people, you do talk about Black men, but when you have so many Black people that carry around shame around their identity, like sexuality, gender, broken families, church wounds, what's the cost of carrying what doesn't belong to us? What's the cost of carrying? What?
I think yeah, I think I'd say one thing, and that is, I think the cost of carrying things that don't belong to us ends up being our own self hatred,
Mm.
because we end up then blaming ourselves for things that have absolutely nothing to do with us and that had no origin in us, right? Even the notion of the horrors of the Middle Passage. What most people don't realize is the Middle Passage is really white history,
Ooh.
because white people owned the boats, white people did the capturing, White people put us on the boats. White people did the buying and the selling. That's European history.
Mm.
How we survived it is African peoples. Is that now? That's African history. But the history of the thing itself, the history of the Middle Passage as a historical moment, is European history.
And it seems that we're the only ones that's carrying the story, that's carrying the trauma, that's
Yes,
carrying the burden of it.
yes,
White people are not carrying that.
because they and we have claimed that as if that is Black people's story,
Mm.
as if that is Black people's history. That's not Black history. That's European history.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I've never. I'll be honest with you. I've never seen it that way
Mm.
because because I know for me, I'm so married to that history that
Right.
I've never seen it, that it is as something that does not, that white people it's their history too.
Right. It
So
is.
wow.
Yeah. And there was many of them on the boats as us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. In your writing and what I've seen you, when I've seen you speak publicly, you are unapologetic about your faith. And I wanted to know, what burdens have the Black church placed on Black people, particularly those who are queer and non-conforming. What kinds of burdens have the Black church placed on Black people?
I'm gonna just say two things. One, I think the Black church has often made Black people, and yeah, the Black church has often made Black people believe that God thinks like us.
Mm.
That's one burden. So that then we end up dealing with a God who is as humanly flawed as all the rest of us. The second thing is the Black church has made us believe that queerness, queerdom, um, has nothing to has no place. That's what I'll say. Has no place in the kingdom, and has made people believe that God did not create people queer. And I think that is just the most. I think God made people queer just as clearly as God made people Black.
Mm.
And I think it's silly to believe that queerness is always some aberration, some is a result of some negative behavior in somebody. Um, and too often the church has perpetuated this notion that that to be queer is in fact a kind of deformation, some kind of deformity, when it's just a part of a person's identity. But I think the Black church has perpetuated that ignorance.
Wow. And it's caused queer people to carry
Oh,
so many
all kinds
burdens.
of
Yes.
negative self images, self hatred, um,
Rejection.
um, rejection,
Yes.
fear that they're going to hell just because of who they are. All of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, 'Cause I have so many questions I want to ask you. So if I've seen everybody, I know everybody. First of all, thank you so much for those of you that are joining. Thank you so much for joining.
I,
I have so
I
many
have
questions.
I have about a good 10 minutes.
Okay. So let's say get to it, because I'm really trying to get these questions in. Uh, wow. Now let's talk about. I want to go back to HBCUs. What do HBCUs carry for us as a people, and what do they require of us in carrying things forward? What do they require us to carry forward? HBCUs.
I think HBCUs have been salvific for Black people, quite frankly. In other words, I think HBCUs have really saved Black children's lives. HBCUs are unbelievably important. They are
Mm.
absolutely critically important. HBCUs do a kind of work that no other institution can do. And one of those things is to make Black children believe and help them understand that to be intelligent is regular, it's not exceptional, it's just who we are. You're not exceptionally smart because you are smart, right? HBCUs also help Black people to dream of realities that most other institutions never conceive of. See, at a Black school, you get to dream of the possibility um, of an all black school and what it would look like. You get to dream of a possibility of going to a black doctor and a black dentist and a black grocery store and a black gas station. Like, you get to dream of the possibility of what it would be like to live in a world peopled by your own people, and how wonderful and joyous that could be, right? Especially in a place like America, whose racist history is so intense that one has often been thought to believe that that black people by themselves actually um, um, are always going to struggle unless there's some whiteness very near or adjacent.
Mm, mm. Wow. Well, you are a writer. You're a phenomenal writer. I tell you,
Thank
when I was reading "Don't Cry for Me," I was crying. So I don't know who I
you.
was crying for, but it just touched me. So it just it just touched me. I won't get into ways, but what are some stories do you believe we still need to tell, but we're too afraid to tell them?
Hmm. Um, I think there are many, many stories we haven't told. I don't think we've ever told the story of enslaved queer people.
Mm,
I've never heard it yet. I've never heard a story of somebody on a plantation who was queer and maybe even in love with another slave.
mm.
I've never heard it. In fact, we don't really talk queerdom until we get almost to like the 70s in America in terms of our public narratives.
Wow.
So I think that's one story that really, really, really needs to be told. Um, Another story that I think needs to be told is uh, how far enslaved fathers went to go to find their children once slavery was over.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that would be a powerful story to follow a black man running around America trying to find his kids.
Wow. Wow. Well, I got some rapid fire questions, one word questions. Quickly, what's one book you carry with you everywhere, in spirit or in your bag? One book.
A Lesson Before Dying,
Ooh,
Ernest
Ernest
Gaines.
Gaines. Yes. What song instantly takes you back to a sacred memory?
Changed by Walter Hawkins.
Wow. What's one word you think black folks carry too often and need to release? One word.
The word nigga.
Mm.
I think we need to give
What's
that
one?
back to its owner.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think we need to give that word back to its owner.
Yes. What's one piece of wisdom you carry from your ancestors?
Never, never believe in the God of the person who oppresses you.
Mm. What emotion do you carry most when you write?
Um, I think sadness. Yeah.
Mm. What's one phrase or saying you carry from your elders?
Um, oh, so many. Um, do it right the first time, and you don't have to do it again.
Mm. Wow. What does Isaac carry in Isaac's song? How does his journey reflect what so many black boys are forced to carry in silence?
I think Isaac carries um, the hurt of perceived rejection. He thinks his father doesn't like him, and I think that colors everything in his life, and it colors how he sees everything.
And what does that say to you about perception?
Well, that perception is always learned, but a
Mm.
perception it's always um, constructed. Perception is never truth. It's always simply a lens through which we construct memory.
Mm. My last question. If anyone who's listening right now, watching, if they're feeling overwhelmed by what they are carrying, what would you say to them?
I'd say to them this: be careful of making other people into God. Be
Mm.
careful of giving other people God's sovereignty and God's power. Don't what other people think, what other people say, how other people understand you, how other people see you has absolutely no power whatsoever unless you give them the power of believing that what they think has the ability to shape and to mold you. In other words, if you take the power back from other people that you've given to them by making them believe that what they think matters, you could get free.
Wow. And perhaps uh, being free from other people's opinions is the greatest freedom.
Yes, and being free from thinking you need other people's applause in order to be free.
Wow. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Black. I am again honored to have had you on my show. Thank you so much for doing
It's
this.
just an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Take
Well,
care.
everybody, I hope you had a great. I hope you've enjoyed this time with Dr. Black. He's a very busy man. He has things he got to do, and but we are so honored that he took the time to talk to me and to you on my show. I feel like I'm Karen Hunter now. Uh, I feel like I'm Karen now. So thank you so much again, and thank all of you for watching. I hope that if you have any questions, any comments, please share them. Any feedback, please share them, and we'll see you soon. Take care, everybody.
For showing up at the intersection. This is the Intersection Podcast with Bummi Anderson, and whether you're watching on screen or listening on the go, we're glad you're here. Be sure to subscribe, share, and stay connected. Until next time, meet us back at the intersection.